Hi there, my name is Kelley Cody Grimm.
And I'm Max Grimm.
And we are Creative Actors Lab. What we want to do is just talk a little bit about how you can bring creativity into your everyday life. Hey everybody, it's Max and Kelley.
Hello.
And we are back for another podcast.
Episode 16.
I know. So Max, would you like to explain a little bit about what our theme is?
Today, just for the record, is August 8th, 2023, and it is just about this time of year, 36 years ago, that we met. And we met at doing a thing called the Florida International University Summer Playwrights Festival. And that is where we first met, and I remember actually, I have a lot of fond memories of that. I mean, aside from the fact that this is where I met my beloved and my future wife, I can still remember the first. I can still remember the first time I saw you. I can still remember the first time, and I just remember going, "Look at her eyes! Oh my God!" But anyway, the point of this is, this episode we're choosing to call it "The Play's the Thing." Aside from the fact that the whole idea of a playwrights festival for personal, romantic life partner meeting sort of memories. Aside from that, I just really remember it was the sort of thing where none of the plays were really fully produced. Everything was, everybody still had a script in their hand, and there was a lot of, during the course of rehearsals, there was a lot of, changing and rewriting things, and there was a lot of interaction with the playwrights. And just getting up and doing these brand new plays that nobody had ever seen before. Then there was Q&A sessions afterwards. And it was a very great educational experience, really, for everybody involved, for the directors. And just to be on a tangent for 1 second, I remember that was the first time I ever worked with this particular director, Mary Ellen O'Brien, who, may she rest in peace, but to this day, there's still so much I learned from her, just, being directed by her in a few plays. And that I think I did the play Equus with her, and then we did 2 iterations of the play Mad Forest by Carol Churchill. And I love the way the way she would speak to people, the way she would communicate, and she was always a very, very big inspiration on me, and to this day. And so meeting that mentor at my very young age, I think I was about 24 when we met, meeting Kelley and all of that. So what this leads me to say is, with Creative Actors Lab, what I would like to do maybe next year, so let me just put this out there and plant the seed, I would like to do our version of a playwrights festival, but also things that could be television or movie scripts, basically something to bring together the writers, the actors, the directors, and everybody gets involved in a creative process. Everybody has their hands in what they're doing. Everybody's contributing to the process, rather than you're going to get cast in a show and here's the script and everything is set, which is a wonderful thing, but it's just everybody has more input. Everybody has more say-so. Everybody's ideas are given consideration. And that's something I would really like to do for Creative Actors Lab. So maybe next summer we would need a venue. We would need to advertise and solicit, scripts and get actors and things like that. But it's not the sort of a thing that you have to get into costume and you have to do set pieces and all the stuff that goes into a theatrical production. And as I'm saying this, way back a few lifetimes ago, I actually did run my own theater company. So I've got a really good idea of what it takes to produce a show. I mean, there's just a whole lot more to it than we can do a show in the barn and my daddy knows music. It's not that it's a lovely romantic idea, but it's also very naive to think something like that can be put together at the drop of a hat and have it come out beautifully. There's a lot that goes into it, so I am aware what I'm saying and what I'm proposing here, and I just think maybe to put it off until next year and really try to do it and do it right. There's so much. It's just more of a creative, collaborative sort of endeavor to do a thing like that. And I just want to put it out there and say that's one of the visions I would like to see manifest for Creative Actors Lab. We've been trying a lot of things to figure out what can we do with this. Just aside from teaching classes, aside from doing table reads and Zoom meetings and things like that, the whole idea of this Writers Festival to me is just, it holds several special places in my heart. And that's what I'd like to do. So let me just say this and plant that seed. And anybody listening to this, if you are interested, if you know of anyone who may be interested, please get in contact with us. And I'd like to start the proceedings. I'd like to start the collaboration and the gathering of forces and all that sort of thing, and really take the time to really do it right and have everybody walk away from with the writers getting more solid ideas and some really good, useful, creative feedback in a supportive environment. And as it is for the actors, get to understand how the writers operate, and the directors get to marshal everyone together. And it's kind of like an all hands in. And I just think it would be a really nice and a wonderful thing to do. And so maybe next year that's what we'll be doing, should the proper forces come together, from my lips to God's ear.
I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about the first time we met each other.
Yeah, I was going to do the same. I was just waiting for it. You just kind of beat me to it. So, okay. Carry on.
All right. Well, we can both kind of lean in and talk about this. So my background up to this point had been doing improv and working with a group named Mental Floss. Kind of got on the outs with that. I was told, and this sometimes happens in the course of your career, and it's amazing how many women improvisers I've heard the same example that this happened to, where they were told, hey, you're not up to speed. The guys here just want, the women in the background. If you want to be more ambitious, that's not what we're looking for the women in the group. You guys are kind of the side pieces. So I've heard
that one.
Yeah,
I've heard that one.
And I mean, if you talk to Tina Fey or any people that have been doing improv for a while, and particularly back in the 80s and the 90s, that was kind of the mentality. I mean, I remember even hearing an interview that someone said that John Belushi, when they were doing Saturday Night Live, kept on saying, I don't think the women are funny. And it's like, are you freaking kidding me?
Particularly Jane Curtin.
Or Gilda Radner or Lorraine Newman. I mean, those were very, very funny characters and actresses. And so when you actually got, Gilda Radner up there doing, that's how I learned how to do my little girl voice, was listening to her. But so I was kind of still licking my wounds after Mental Floss. And I had heard about the FIU Playwrights Festival and decided to investigate that.
I will never forget, okay, she's probably going to say this. At the time, my hair was close to being down to my waist. I had a beard. In case you've never actually seen me, I have a bunch of tattoos. I'm 6'3". I'm kind of obvious. I'm kind of noticeable. I was very shy. I was very soft-spoken, and there I am being an actor, a stage actor, and being this really shy bucket of self-reflection. But I remember, and she'll say this, on the day I was wearing a T-shirt that said, "I'm not wearing any underwear, film at 11." And she apparently, all these years later, still finds this to be tremendously funny. But I remember I was talking with a guy that I had known. He was one of those people. The guy's name was Richard. We would kind of see each other at auditions and everything. So we were talking, and Kelley walks over to us and she asked us a question, and I was like, oh my God, she's so pretty. And I guess I was sort of like looking down and mumbling and whatever. And she apparently thought that was just so cute. That somebody who looked like me, looked like I did in those days, would have this shy demeanor. Well, here I am. At the time, I was dating someone else. I was dating a very lovely young woman. She was dating this very nice young man. And at the time, I was also in the middle of running my own theater company. I was in between productions. I just remember my main scene partner, her name was Samantha. I just remember she and I were sitting in the audience and we were talking about our scenes and whatever. And I remember Kelley walks up and starts talking to us, and there was just something very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very adamant and very defensive. we were just looking and talking, and we were just talking and conversing and everything. And then Kelley walks away, and then Samantha and I kind of looked at each other and went, "What's wrong? What happened? What's going on with her?" And what had to happen in part of the script, Kelley's character walks up to me and basically in the script plants a big old wet sloppy kiss right on my lips. And that was part of it. And I just remember it's like, okay, I got to make sure that I smell good and I have breath mints and everything. Oh God, she's going to, so the whole kiss was part of a thing that, every time that we rehearsed, it was like, okay, that was just part of the script. I'm just an actor. I'm doing my job. I'm kissing a pretty young woman just because I'm a professional actor. And it just became that. That's how one of the first things we ever did is to her walk out, grab me by the shirt and yank me in and give me a big old kiss on the face. That's just who we were to each other at that time. We're just a couple of scene partners, and we became friendly and everything like that. But I was dating somebody else, she was dating somebody else. So, as the fates would have it, after that show was over, I wound up building the scenery for another show you were in called Raining Backwards. Yeah. So I was the set designer for that show, and so we wound up seeing each other all over again. And then and we were still dating other people at the time, but we were the conversations seemed to flow very, very naturally between us, and we had similar interests with being in theater people. Then that show came to an end, and then we wound up getting cast in a children's theater production, Midsummer Night's Dream. It dealt with pretty much, if you know Midsummer Nights, it dealt with the rustics, those characters, the rude mechanicals, and you had Puck, and I was Oberon, Kelley was Titania, and you had Nick Bottom and those different characters. But it was a really, really pared down, like 30-40 minute version of Midsummer Night's Dream, directed specifically for kids. It was at that point where all of a sudden we were not dating these people anymore, and that's when we finally got together. It was, if I remember correctly, it was October 15th. It was about 1 week after my 25th birthday. And I'm
amazed that you remember the exact date.
Yeah,
As a woman, I am supposed to remember these things, but he has always remembered that.
I can actually remember a few things about that. But but prior to this, I remember when I sort of heard about the sort of behavior and treatment that you unfairly and unjustly endured at the improv company that you were with at that time. And I just remember you called me one Sunday afternoon, and I think you had just broken up with the young gentleman. And I remember you called me and you started asking me questions about different actors. And I'm going to start my own company, and I just want to know what actors are solid. And we were having this very intense conversation on the phone, and I'm going through my folders of these headshots of people who had auditioned for me, and I was like, this person is solid, and this is a good person, and this person's got some really good talents in that way. And I just remember there was this very, and I'm probably not going to come up with a word to adequately describe, but just this, you were very adamant. You were very.
I've never been adamant in my life.
You're adamant every day of your life. But that was the first time that I really got a taste of that. And I'm just on the phone with you, and I'm going, what's wrong? What happened here? Eventually you told me the story about how some of these young men were treating you at the time, and they were putting down your talent and saying that you were not on a parallel with them, and that you were like the weak sister and all of that sort of crap. It became apparent to me like that really hurt you in a very deep way. And it's the sort of a thing in acting where you do have to have a very thick skin, and you are going to get a lot of rejection. That's part of it. However, that sort of treatment is unacceptable. First of all, I don't think it was true, and secondly, Mahatma Gandhi said something one time to say it's one of the very sad parts of human nature to where people find it necessary to put the people around them down, so it creates the illusion that they're a bigger person than they actually are, rather than making themselves a better person, rather than learning their craft better, not, practicing the 4 agreements and showing up on time and being the best you can be at what you do, rather than making yourself a better person. No, we've got continue to be the same sort of slovenly, half-assed person that they are, and taking the people around them who are adamant and who are trying and are sincerely putting forth an effort and putting that down. And that's what you endured. And I remember hearing about that, and that really, really made me angry, because I know how that feels. And it's just one of those things you cannot, in any endeavor, be it artistic or otherwise. I just find doing that to other people it so bespeaks of a very low intellect and self-opinion, to where you have to sort of resort to that sort of nastiness to make yourself feel worthy to get up and do whatever it is you do. And you endured that. And I just remember, and to this day, even just thinking about that, I'm really sorry you went through that, because that was not deserved. Nobody deserves that. Nobody deserves to be treated that way. But you do see it quite a bit, particularly in acting. So what that has led me to say over the course of the years, particularly as I've gotten into directing and teaching, tremendous love I have of directing and teaching people, is that you have to create a safe space to do dangerous work. And that's what I've always tried to do. Anytime I've ever entered this particular realm, that's what that would be the thing I would say first and foremost to do for the vision I have of this Playwrights, for lack of a better term, Playwrights Festival. That would be priority number 1, is to bring people in and have them be assured that you're not going to be treated that way. And if you are, you're going to have to deal with me. And that's one of the things, like, I can be the most nice, patient, kind, tolerant person in the world, but when I see something like that, the phenomenon of nice Max goes away, and you're gonna get reamed. And it's nothing I enjoy doing. I prefer not to do it, but it's just the sort of a thing that I've seen too many people get hurt because of that sort of Neanderthal approach that some people have had over the years. That would be the first thing that I would say to really anyone and everyone who has any interest in participating in this. I'm here to create a safe space so you can get up and do whatever risks you wish to take, and you're in a supportive environment. And that to me is first and foremost, because I've been on the other side of that sort of treatment. I've had some people get really unnecessarily cruel, and people who, particularly when you're dealing with young people and people who are very new to acting, and they get that sort of a director, that sort of treatment. I can remember being in a show, and it was this first-time director, and we had one of those rehearsals. It was getting close to opening. And generally speaking, when you get close to the opening of a show, there's this phenomenon that occurs to where you guys will have a rehearsal that just stinks. For whatever reason, it just seems to be part of the process of, like, while we still have a few rehearsals left before opening night, we're just going to turn out a stinker. We're going to fall down. We're going to forget our lines. It's just going to be this total and complete mess. And you sort of have to do it to get the bugs out, to get all the, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Let's have that happen before the curtain goes up on opening night. But I just remember having one of those rehearsals, and the young man comes walking down the center aisle of the theater, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "That was so bad, I want to piss on all of you people." And he proceeds to just lambast and browbeat and all these other descriptives that, I just remember looking at this going, okay, I think I'm going to quit. I think I'm just going to, and I didn't, because I'm going to be better than that. I'm going to be, because we'd put all this work into it, and he's just having a moment. But I just think it is so important in this, really in any profession, but in acting in particular, is that you really do have to be compassionate of other people. And if you don't have that element of compassion in just as a matter of your mode of being and in your modus operandi, you're missing a huge part of acting and theater and drama and cinema and all these other wonderful things. what I think is most important is I was listening to this one speaker, a gentleman by the name of Nick Yaris. Nothing to do with theater, but his story is absolutely incredible. And he went through all of this stuff, and he said these terrible things happened, but he still came out the other side, and he survived, and he got knocked down 10 times and got back up for 11 and everything like that. I remember one thing he said is, don't ever let anyone steal your kindness. And when you're in a profession like this where everything is about auditioning and people being brought into this under the guise of, hey, do you see yourself on TV? Hey, you can be a big star. And all of a sudden, all of the humanity and all of the depth and all of the compassion and all of the depth, breadth, and width of the human spirit tends to minimalize, and it's like, I got to get this part, I got to nail this audition, I got to get all this applause, and that humanity goes away. And that's when we start doing stuff like that. That's when that behavior starts to rear its ugly head. And I've seen so many people get lost in the superficiality of it all. As I sit here and contemplate the idea of doing this Playwrights Festival, which would be the first thing theatrically I would have produced in many, many years, aside from the practicalities of it, aside from getting a venue and getting the proper actors and writers and crew and everybody together, thing one is, do not lose that compassion, do not lose that humanity, do not forget why you're there doing what you're doing. Don't forget why you love what you're doing. And it's so easy in acting to just lose that. I've seen so many people just come into it, and the heart and the soul and the love that they had in the first place goes away, and it never comes back. And that to me is just sad, and that would be my first priority, is to not have that love, that compassion, and that depth of human spirit get lost in the applause, the accolades, the prestige.
When you have people that, particularly in improv, you have to have a pretty high level of trust, and to have the people that you think that are supposed to be, having your back and trusting. And I mean, the thing was, sometimes I was getting stopped like at Dadeland Mall and having people go, hey, I saw you at Mental Floss, when are you going to be on there next? And at that point, I mean, I had been demoted just to doing box office. They weren't even, and that was like, okay. I mean, it's good to see people, but when they're used to seeing you perform and you have that situation happen, it was like, okay, I guess I must have done something right, because these people are recognizing me in a mall and saying, hey, I really love that show. But, I think for me, what it did teach, and, and at the point that, we met, like I said, I was licking my wounds, so there was probably a fair amount of defensiveness. And that's part of your process. I do remember, however, one performance that we were doing, the Playwrights Festival, though, I think we had memorized. We were off book. We weren't on there, because I do remember one, and originally the play, just so that you know, was supposed to have been All Men Are Whores. And that is actually a David Mamet play. And so the guy who had written this play assumed nobody knew much about David Mamet. Max, of course, was a Mamet file. So, you knew just almost all of David Mamet's library.
I knew his stuff chapter. I knew David Mamet chapter and verse back then.
So Max brought it up to this playwright that, oh, by the way, David Mamet has a play by that title. So it ended up being changed into Whoredogs. And so one night we were doing the scene, and we were on the couch or whatever, and I just kind of forgot myself. And we're on stage, and when I kissed Max, I really kissed him, as in the French way.
Yeah.
And I was just and I was so embarrassed after the show. I was just kind of just shook his hand and went, hey, good to work with you, trot, trot, trot. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe I did that. And then, after we finished the play, luckily that was not the performance my boyfriend Patrick attended. So I do remember telling my sister-in-law, Rita, and just saying, my buddy Max this, my buddy Max that. And she's like, Kelley, I think this is heading away from your buddy Max. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, I think he's going to be more than your buddy Max. Just trust me on that. And so I did. And so, that night that I did call you, Patrick had just said, I don't want to be your boyfriend anymore. And I'm like, what? And then this was after he was in the improv troupe that I got kicked out of. He didn't stand up for me, didn't do anything, and still I was like, oh, okay. So I think there was a part of me that at the point that he said bye-bye, I was relieved, but I was still a little shocked by that. And so I did need to talk to my buddy Max, just because I needed to hear a reassuring, kind male voice outside of my dad, that I felt like, okay, this is a good person. Maybe there's hope for me after all. When you and I talk about coaching, and in light of that, I'm very conscious when we are coaching is, for me, it's really important for people, they're beginners, they're going to make mistakes. But, we always say you can't build a foundation if you're building the foundation with cracks in it already. So if I, as an acting coach, am going to stand back and go, oh, that was so bad, like that one guy did, I want to piss all over you, that was awful, or whatever, I'm going to sound like, Simon Cowell. That's not going to take them to where they need to go. They need to have that confidence. So then if they do get knocked down a little bit, they have the strength and the foundation to be able to get back up and decide if this is for them. And, for me, I think as an acting coach, as a performer, director, someone who's produced I've been on movie sets that were really good. I've been on movie sets that were really terrible. And I will tell you a good example. In fact, we were talking about this yesterday at Frat Pack Productions, and I was just saying, oh my gosh, when I was on The Resident, Bruce Greenwood was so, so nice, and he played, the lead doctor on there, and he was so nice, and he would come over and he would ask how you were, and he was so genuine. And he's been in the business for a few minutes anyway. Mm-hmm. But because he knew that I'm going to help people out, I'm not going to take them down. It's all about me wanting to make the production overall and have people feel welcome to this set, whether they are featured, whether they're doing a cameo, whether they're background. And he treated everybody with the same amount of respect. And I'm like, dang it. That's the way it always should be. It's not always that way on sets. You do have people that get upset. I was on one movie, and, the background people weren't being given the right direction, and they kept on crossing in front of the lead, and he was getting super pissed, and it was just a matter of, okay, everybody kind of back off. And it was like, okay, everybody back off. Let's just figure this out. Why don't we have them go 2 beats after he's gone? So you cue them after he's already started his cross, and then it was fine. But, if you don't have that sense of it's got to be me, 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 or, oh no, this person's got a massive ego, what do I do? It's going to be a lot harder to get there. I'll tell you another movie that I worked on, and it was a Farelly Brothers movie, oddly enough, Jack Black. It's a holiday movie that's coming out, and that's all I'll say. But what was really nice was the director and the director of photography, before everybody was dismissed, for working, and we had been working under cold conditions. It was rainy, it was nasty, and it was like 3 days. The holding area was a tent. But they got up and they took the time to thank us. And that, to me, just speaks so much of class. And, those are the things that, as production people, and again, as you're saying about wanting to put on the Playwrights Festival, making people feel like, yeah, I can get out there and do it, and I can try it. Are you going to make mistakes? Of course you're going to make mistakes. And it's the imperfections, I think, that make things interesting. And, again, as a writer, I love the idea of this, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a showcase for anything that me and my daughters are doing. I would actually rather have other people's work in there. If there's like one little small thing that we could have in, that would be good. But this isn't like, oh, we're going to put it on, so we're going to be doing nothing but reading our projects. I don't need that. And what is cool is we are able to do table reads via Zoom. And, we did that last night for a pilot episode of BoJack Horseman, which was a very early draft. And what was interesting was one of the people on there is in my screenwriting class, and he kind of looked at the date. The original date was like August 2011. The first episode of BoJack didn't premiere until 2013, and he goes, whoa, so it was like 2 years before, this got optioned and produced. And I'm like, yeah, it may have been 2 years after he finished it, because the draft had kind of like aspects of episode 1 or 2 in it. But I said, yeah, that is a lot of times how it goes. You're not going to get it optioned right away. Maybe if you're a huge name, you might. But even at that, they still need time to do the casting. They need to, even if it's, and particularly if it's an animated show, you don't have locations and things like that, but you have the animation, which takes a lot of time, and getting the voice actors together and then syncing everything together. So it's a very different discipline. But, that's just the thing that Max and I, we really try to work with the actors and go, you're more than likely not going to get it your first time out. If you do, great. I almost prefer that you don't, because you need to have that sense of, okay, what can I learn from this? So at the point that you really do get it, you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, I'm savoring this so much because it took X amount of tries to finally get it. And again, if you listen to podcasts by other entertainers and other actors, that's exactly what they'll tell you. I mean, these are people who have had leads in other network TV shows that have said, yeah, 20 auditions later, I still was not landing what I needed to. So whatever point in your career you're at, sometimes you're a beginner at the beginning. And don't feel badly about that, because that's the process. That's how you learn. And, for every opportunity that you get to pull up sides and you get to show your craft, Bryan Cranston talks about that a lot on his YouTube page. And I think that's just really important, is, feel that way, go with it. But, again, that's one of the reasons why I love teaching with Max so much, is that we can play off of each other and we can talk about our experiences. People come out of our classes feeling like that was a really positive experience. I was new, and you get told that people are going to be kind to you. That is not how we operate. And again, you're going to get knocked down in the course of this business. We all do. I did. But I think what was good about that, with that experience with the improv, was it was a clear, and you've had that early in your career, is this is your test. How badly do you want this? Because you got knocked down, are you going to get back up again, and are you going to go back and go forward? And sometimes you're foolish enough to keep on going forward, but it does teach you resilience. And that's probably the biggest thing I think that you can take away from doing plays and theater and films, and just keep on working at it. And those, right now, again, with the actors' strike and the writers' strike, those day jobs give you the ability to write and perform something that's real, because you're not in this fanciful world and trying to portray something you don't understand. So even if you're looking at that, that's a gift as well. Anytime you've got to do, and I think I've mentioned that before, Angela Kinsey and Jenna Fisher both worked in offices, and some of the writers hadn't. They were just going from show to show. For them to sit there and go, okay, this would happen in an office, that gave them a depth to their characters that other people may not have had.
No matter how long you've been doing acting, I think probably one of the most important considerations is the possibility of how much can I learn? What can I do that I've never done before? What new experience can I have? What new thing? What new piece of an arsenal can I put under my belt? What new feather can I put in my cap, so to speak? I think that is tremendously important, really, for anyone, because the thing about acting, and I've said this a bunch of times to students, is kind of like, you never get to a point where you know everything. And if you do feel that you've gotten to the point where this is everything I can learn, this is everything that I can experience from acting, go do something else. There's always something new to learn, and when you lose that, it's time to move on. The other thing I will say is, there's the old adage of when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I believe the inverse is also true, in that when the teacher is ready, the students appear. And one thing I will say that's just I have always found so gratifying, even from like the first time I taught any kind of a class when I was still in college, and I was like doing this student teacher thing. And I remember the first time I was explaining something or demonstrating, or just getting the kids involved in something, and they got it. And you actually see the metaphorical light bulb go on over the head.
The spark in the eyes.
It is so rewarding. It is the most rewarding thing. It's like, they got it. And you see the light in the eyes, and you see the aha moment, and it is the most beautiful thing. Teaching is not for everybody by any stretch of the imagination, but when you feel like I've been heard and I've been understood, whether you're teaching or whether you're doing whatever it is you're doing, whatever contribution you're making to whatever your situation you're involved in, and all of a sudden you become aware of, they just heard me, they understood me. Some people may not agree with you, but that's okay. They still understood and heard you. And I just think, as human beings, that's what we all need, is just to feel like somebody just heard us. When we talk about communication, everybody can talk, or most people can talk, but very few people, I hate to say, I think the numbers are in decline, but I think we're losing our ability to listen to one another. And that's very, very sad. But in acting, where you are in the communication business, you're in the storytelling business, when you realize you've just been heard, when you've just been understood, when your message has got across the aethers and the airwaves and entered into somebody else's consciousness, and they get it, it's just life affirming. Mm-hmm. It's just life affirming. And I just think, whether you're going to be an actor or whatever, we all need that. We need to have that experience, and at the same time, we need to have a part of ourselves that is open to letting other people be heard and be understood. It's just kindness. It's just humanity. I don't ever want to lose that.
All right, so thank you all again for listening. We really appreciate it. Again, if you have any ideas for future episodes, we're always open to that. We're open to the yes and.
We love whatever interaction, guys. We love to hear from you.
Yeah.
We appreciate your feedback and your input so much. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you guys again so much, and we will be back next time. You all have a great one. Bye-bye.
Much love, everybody. Bye-bye.
We appreciate you guys tuning in, and keep in mind that you can catch us on our social media, Creative Actors Lab on Instagram and Facebook, and by the same name on YouTube. And for more on what we do, you can go to our website,
creativeactorslab.com, all one word. Thank you for listening. Stay curious, make art.org. Much love until next time.